And then like longer term, you think 3 months or a quarter, you can go walk for 30 or so minutes. Because what happens after about 15 to 20 minutes, all that executive stuff settles down and the dreaming part, the opening up happens. You get that default mode network starts to become more dominant. You start to see things differently. I mean, it's a really crazy shift. When I'm walking, I will sometimes time it just curiously. I'll be like, wow, 18 minutes. And all of a sudden, my brain just goes these different places. And then even longer, you get more. So longer can be longer term.
Hello, conscious leaders, beautiful people, and light keepers. It's Michele Phillips with this week's episode of Write Your Outcome. Today, I have with me someone who has a very different life than mine, but the things we do are so similar. Welcome, Sarah Draper.
Thank you, Michele. I'm so glad to be here.
I'm so happy to have you. So as I do with every podcast, I'm going to read a little bit about Sarah because she is a powerhouse, fabulous, amazing, strong, badass woman, if I say so myself. And I'm going to read a little bit about her background, and then we'll get into the podcast. So today's guest has spent her career leading in some of the highest pressure environments in the world. And now she's helping leaders everywhere learn how to thrive instead of simply survive. Sarah G. Draper is a West Point graduate, a former U.S. Army military police officer, and a retired FBI Supervisory Special Agent with nearly 3 decades of experience leading, teaching, and serving in high-stake environments. Today, she's the founder of Leading Well Strategies, where she helps leaders build resilience, improve well-being, and create cultures where both people and performance flourish. She is also a certified positive psychology practitioner, resilience practitioner, and health and well-being coach. What I love about the work Sarah does is that, while I just said our backgrounds are very different, our message is remarkably similar. We both believe leadership isn't about just what you accomplish, but it's about who you become and how you show up while you're leading. Sarah has dedicated her life to helping leaders perform at their best without sacrificing their health, their relationships, or themselves, which this, like, all the bells ring in my head because I'm so excited. So welcome, Sarah.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
I'm so excited for you to be here because my first book was Happiness is a Habit. And I always say, happy, confident people make you feel happy and confident. Yeah. And you have a saying that, the healthy, conscious leaders, create healthy organizations.
Yeah.
What do you think gets in the way from certain leaders from doing that inner work that creates that clarity for them?
Oh, great. Survival mode. I honestly, I think it's what's a couple of things: survival mode and what is measured or counted. There's really many things. Those plus the examples that have been set for them, all those go into like organizational culture.
Yeah, so interesting, right? So we have bad models.
Yeah.
Right. So you said bad models, you said culture, you said 3 things. I want to grab them because they're so good. Survival. Yeah, because it makes me so crazy. My whole thing with leadership is I call it conscious leadership, meaning it's so similar to what you do. It's not about just getting the result. It's about aligning with who you are and being present with who you are. I love your story. And while we didn't get into it yet, you are a West Point graduate, which, first of all, like, kudos. I don't even know. Did you always want to go to West Point? Where did that even start?
Not at all. How did West Point start? That interest developed when I was in high school from a childhood visit to the Air Force Academy. So there was a seed planted, but it really came in later high school years.
Okay, so you're following this career, you're a West Point graduate, you're a physical fitness instructor, you're now an FBI, and I don't know which was the job. I watched your TED Talk, one of the jobs where you decided, a lot of times what I find, people are, on the outside, everything's going great, right? I have this job, it looks good, I'm good at it, I'm getting paid well, I'm recognized, but there's something missing. And you tell the story in your TED Talk about, like, the day you realized you had to leave that job. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Absolutely. So I was a supervisor in the FBI at that point in time. And I was in survival mode. So that's why I brought that up when you
Yeah.
asked about what gets in the way of this. I was in survival mode, which I now recognize and realize and appreciate many people are. But I was in a culture in which we didn't share that. We didn't really share our struggles. And
Mm.
absolutely, in the environments I've been from, the cultures I've been in, the professions I've been in, yes, like we really do need confidence. We really need to be able to step
Yeah.
into something when we're not sure. Like even if there's uncertainty, we do a lot of preparation and preparing and working and teaming and all that stuff to make sure when we do something, we do it well and protect people. But so certainly there's a huge space for confidence. But I remember throughout my careers, like everyone looks like they have it all together, right? And
Yeah.
so any self-doubt or any struggle I was like, I felt alone. There
Mm.
weren't spaces at all to share those struggles or doubts. And even behind those closed doors, everyone just still had that air. And so my struggles were on my own, and they weren't like struggles with doing the work. I'm like,
Yeah.
I get the work done. They were struggles with making life work. Honestly, they were
Yeah.
struggles with how do you raise kids when your husband's also doing this job? How do you connect with people who are like really different experiences from yours? How do you do all these just different things? I could do the work,
I love
but
what you said there. I don't want to. Do you have one
oh
final
no,
thing?
please, yeah,
I love what you said. And it really resonates so deeply. And I think it'll resonate with my listeners is you know how to do the work
right.
but you don't know how to do life. And
Mhm.
that's so important. And I use the example of a box truck. If a box truck, the load limit of the box truck is, I don't know, 10,000 pounds, and you
Okay.
put 20,000 pounds in the box truck, it's going to
Yeah.
weaken the axles. And in corporate America right now, or in any Western civilization, kind of, we are pushing people to their load limits and beyond.
Oh yeah.
And it's not only that we're expected to do more with less. I don't know how many of my clients already are like in hiring freezes and they can't spend money and it's April. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like we use these arbitrary measurements. And then at the end of the year, we cut jobs. So it's like people are afraid survival. I'm thinking what you're saying. So they're afraid they might lose their job because any restructure, what's my new one that I love? They're sunsetting your position.
Ugh.
So we use all these terms. So there's no real security. And then I guess what I'm hearing too, it's not that you can't do your job, but you're over your load limit. Is that what I'm hearing?
I think that's a big part of it. I think it's probably a couple of different things. And so one is that, right? And I think of it like rocks in a rucksack. You just keep weighing down and weighing down.
Yeah.
Even as you increase your capacity, even as you add maybe another axle for your metaphor to your truck, like you still at some point your capacity gets exhausted. But also, and there's it's a tandem thing. It could be one or the other, but I think at least in my own life, they worked in parallel. You've got to know what you're working for. What are you working toward? What is that like? Because that, if you don't have, I guess the non-AI use of the word clarity, right? If you don't have like a real understanding of what you're working towards, what you're working for, beyond just getting through a career, beyond just, I got to make it to retirement, like something real, something different. You don't know what you're working towards. It's those rocks get heavier. Not that they add having that clarity adds some additional capacity to you, but what I think that does is it helps you figure out what you need to let go of that's not in service of what you're working for. And without that, I didn't really have that. See, when I was in that circumstance, I just kept putting more rocks in because I could, and more was expected, and I put more rocks in and put more rocks in. I mistook resilience for grit. I thought,
So important. Let me back you up too,
yeah,
Sarah.
please
When you
back up.
talk about clarity,
Yeah,
knowing why you're doing what you're doing, can you talk? I'd love to add some of the positive psychology. I mean, we're both positive psychology practitioners. So
right.
tell me how someone finds that clarity.
I'll tell you how
Yeah.
I find it with walking and thinking forward and understanding. Like I have this thing called a future walk where I walk and think forward to the future. My husband had done this. My husband and I had done this together probably a couple of years preceding this mountain thing that we're kind of talking about. Um, Figuring out why it's deep work, it's deep soul work, it's trying things out, like what am I doing beyond just surviving. Again, that survival mode might get you to a finish line, honestly, but then what, like to what end? So getting real on how you want your life to be, and it's intentional questions. It's journaling, it's getting to know yourself, it's listening to your voices, it's listening to others' voices, it's trying to make it's longer term, deeper, uncomfortable work than I was certainly ever comfortable.
I love what you're saying. Each of these could be a total podcast. We could do
Yeah,
one on
right.
journaling. We could do one on future walk, asking
Yeah.
intentional questions. In positive psychology, as you know, they say the levels of happiness are, and I'll say them for the listeners, the first level of happiness is just, kind of pleasure, getting a manicure, having a beer with the guys, enjoyment. And the second level of happiness is when time flies. You're doing something and you're like, oh, where did the day go? And the third ultimate level of happiest people are using your skills and talents in service of something greater than you.
Mhm.
So I love what you're saying about, if you're just in survival mode and you're not figuring it out. When I was in corporate America, gosh, so many years ago,
Yeah.
I remember looking at the people above me and thinking, I don't think I want that. There's nothing wrong with climbing that corporate ladder and going up, but it wasn't resonating with me. And I think the clarity I found was, I always say I wanted a full life, not a full calendar. And that's a choice, which is,
Like that.
I was very lucky to follow that energy. But I always say, on the one hand, I'm following that deep soul voice, but on the other hand, I still have to pay the bills. So, it's finding a way to make your way through this. I love what you talk about, asking intentional questions. You said asking intentional questions, asking the deeper questions. From your experience with the leaders you work with, are they doing this already, or is it something you introduce to them when you start working with them?
Most people aren't doing this already because
Yeah.
we've been shown a way to have a successful, however you define that, career, right? There's for the most part, I think things are changing, and like future or next generations. I don't know if that pathway is there, but at least then where I was, like, there is a pathway to a successful career, and you do this, and then you move into this, and then you move into this, or you do this, right? Like so it's just going along. And there's I love leadership. I mean, I studied leadership. That was my master's degree is in organizational leadership. I was a leader. Like I love the idea of leadership, but often people leading by example is important, as long as the example you're leading isn't what you're expecting everyone else to do. And what I see a lot and have experienced and have heard a lot is a leader, well-intended, will say, this is the way you should work your career. Like, this is do what I did. Look, see how well it worked out for me. And so we either have like a organizational pathway that's set for us, or a leader who we admire, who's a mentor, who's a role model, who shows us their way of success, and we follow one of those pathways.
I'm so excited too. I'm going to stop you there. I just was with a client recently who, exactly what you're saying, Sarah. She said she worked for a boss, and she said, should I go for an MBA or a master's of engineering? And he said, I think you should go for an MBA. So she went for the MBA. Then she gets a new boss, and he goes, you should have done a master's of engineering. So now she's going to do that too. So
Yeah.
I want you to walk us through, say you have a client, didn't make a decision yet, and has these two masters of engineering or masters of MBA. How do you help them make that decision for themselves? That's what I'd love to talk about.
That's a great thought experiment, right? So how do you take that person who's giving you that advice out of it even when you deeply, deeply admire them. Unless there's someone who really does hold space for you and sees different options and pros and cons. There's a way you could calculate this out and like look at those quantifiable things and mark your pluses and
Yeah.
negatives in your different columns. You can do all of that. There's also a sense you get when you do that. And I think there's important work there, right? Making quadrants maybe of, what are the pluses of this route? What are the minuses of this route? What are the pluses of the other route? What are the minuses of the other route? Like working through that and not discounting your feelings about it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, no, this is because so many of us were taught to do the column, right? Pros and cons,
right.
and what do people think? And we call up all these people, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think?
Yeah.
And I always say to people, what do you feel?
Yes.
When you think about this degree, how does it make you feel? And there was a great quote, I don't know who said it. It was, don't do what the world needs. Figure out what makes you come alive and do that, because the world needs more people who have come alive. Absolutely. So you're not saying don't do the pros and the cons and use your thinking, but then check in with your gut, your heart, your soul.
Yes. And what I'm doing, what I do now is not on the like wellness coaching for leaders and all of that. That's something I began in my last few years through my own journey while I was still in the FBI. And then I finished teaching it more formally to law enforcement leaders with this program I ran. And it's so different. It is so different than what anyone would have told me to do, because it was part of my journey. So was on the mountain, decided I needed to leave a role, not because I was seeking something else, but I got some clarity, again, real clarity on my impact on a leader was not like I wanted it to be. Like I was not positively impacting anymore. And I knew I needed to move into something else because of the people I led. Anyhow, we can dig into that more.
But I want to do that. So now you have to leave that career. And then what comes next for you? What you get clear and then
role. Yeah, it was just a role. And then I knew I wasn't doing my best by them anymore for a lot of reasons. All those reasons probably are immaterial. There's a lot of different influences and factors and different reasons, time, people, all this stuff. But I knew I got kind of began to understand like, I'm not doing well for them. And that was the only reason I want to be a leader. And like, for me, leader is all about people. Yes. Mission, of course. Absolutely. Like when you get mission driven people, you don't need to like impart more mission on them. It's all about the leader facilitating. And so, yes. And so when I wasn't doing that at my best, I needed to find a way to let that go. So I just went on a journey of trial and learn. I just went on this journey of trial and learn, and it was difficult. I started trying things out. I first had to get myself well. I was not in a great place. Now, you've watched a TEDx talk. I don't think I was in official burnout. I think I know I was in what we kind of informally talk about as burnout now, but not what I didn't have was cynicism. I think I'm too idealistic to ever get cynical. So I did not have the cynical component, but I wasn't performing at my best and I was exhausted. I needed to recover those things. I need to figure out the exhaustion first. And so I worked through that. And then I worked on how to get back to being my best and what my best was. And through this whole process, no specific door opened, but I feel like this field of like not opportunities either. I had to make those opportunities, but like a field of possibilities.
I like that.
Became apparent, and because I got feedback from others. Like I got feedback from people as I was doing this work on myself, like, hey, you're different. You've changed. Like, what's going on? And can you help me? And I began to realize like this thing we were all doing to make ourselves feel good and confident and all that, even with each other behind closed doors when we could have opened up, like everyone was doing it. And so I realized others needed this help too. That's when the possibilities became apparent to me. And then I started getting more formal training in different areas to actually be, I was just sharing with someone this, like, I'm like, well, I could tell you what I've been doing, but it's no better than me giving you my gym workout. If I'll give you a gym workout, but like I wanted to get some more formal training so that I could actually share these things. So that was a big part.
I want to take a moment to go over all the ways we can connect and work together, because there are so many. Definitely social media. You could subscribe to my newsletter by going to energizeyourhappiness.com, clicking on the key performance logo in the upper left-hand corner, which will prompt you to add your email. And when you do that, you will receive for free my 5 super habits that energize your result. You can continue to keep listening to this podcast. And if you hear something that resonates, that helps you, please share it with your friends and family. This podcast is a labor of love, and it is fully funded by myself. You can read my books. Happiness is a Habit, Energize Your Happiness. Energize Your Happiness is available in book form and on audible.com. And if you like the books, please rate and review. I do a tremendous amount of one-on-one executive coaching. I pride myself on my one-on-one VIP retreats, where it's you and me for 48 hours, focusing on what's important to you and how to add more meaning and fulfillment to your life personally and professionally. We can work together to do one-on-one assessments. I am certified in over 20 different assessments. You take the assessment online, and then one-on-one, we have a Zoom call where you get a personalized debrief session with me. I also have a self-guided online video program based on my first book, Happiness is a Habit. This book has been curated into 18 beautiful videos and an 80-page workbook, which you could do as a self-guided study, or you can hire me to coach you along through it and support you. One of my favorite things to do with burnt out executives is the Energized Leader 90-day reset experience. I do tons of keynote speaking, 1 day, full day and half day workshops, Zoom and virtual workshops. So from podcasts to books, to executive coaching, to workshops, to transformational leadership, all of this work is not about faking it. This work is about emotional mastery, energetic alignment, and courageous leadership, and consciously writing an outcome that you want to live. So you can reach me at energizeyourhappiness.com. All of these things are on my website, or you can email me directly, Michele@energizeyourhappiness.com. Thank you, and make it a great day. So, and it's so interesting, your journey, because people know they're overworked. They know they're not feeling good. You were very aware of a couple things. First of all, you said, I don't have a good impact on the people. Yeah. And that's a number one thing. Some leaders don't even think about the people. I mean, I've worked very few, but some. I had a guy once many years ago. I said, how often do you meet with your people? Oh, I don't meet with the people, and he just was a very good person that was in the wrong role. Okay. I had another client once tell me, I don't want to have the direct reports. I just want a seat at the table and the money, the salary. So you being very self-aware, and I want everyone listening, if you're in a leadership role, and I always say everyone's in a leadership role. If you're not on an org chart, you're leading your family, you're leading your relationship. Are you of service? A leader is of service to the people. So you did that, which I kudos for that. The other thing you did was you took that time, that downtime, where most people don't take the downtime. We might take time off, but then you're off, traveling in Spain, or, we're doing something fabulous, but we're not really being with ourselves. Then the third thing I love that you said was you started doing these intentional things like journaling and the future walking, which we'll talk about. But I think what happens was, and you could tell me, people, even though we've heard these things that you should work out, or you should spend time outdoors, or you should quiet your mind, people go, yeah. later when I have time.
Right.
So all of the things you did are the recipe. And,
Yes.
I always say if the ingredients stink, the cake's going to be horrible. But if the ingredients are good, then the cake is good. So what I'm hearing you did was you took these different ingredients and you got yourself to a good place. Right. I always say a good coach, a good leader is someone who's been through it and now can lead others through the same. So tell us about Future Walk and what that is so we can let people know about it.
Yeah. Oh, and talk about Future Walk. And I just want to emphasize one additional point. I didn't go take time out. I moved right into the next role, like immediately. And I did these things while doing that and learning a new role. And that's not to be like, oh, I was amazing and wonderful, because the things I needed to figure out were things that I could fit into an already same crazy busy life.
Okay. I think I was talking about the mountain. You took time to climb the mountain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That was like the mountain was like that 3-day journey. It's amazing.
Yeah.
3 days. Why would 3 days away give me that clarity? Well, honestly, I had it in about a day and a half because it was already there. It just gave me the silence I needed to pay attention. But yeah, so this cake, these ingredients, we all make a different cake. The ingredients have to be good, but they're not all huge and they all work together. So to continue.
This is perfect. I'm tracking with you.
Right. Like it's possible to do this while still meeting and all those other obligations in your life. And so it's possible to take good care of yourself too. It doesn't require 2 hours of this a day and 3 hours of that and going on a big retreat. And all those are great. But like, what do you do on a daily basis? And one of those things is future walking. So Future Walk is not what we called it, but my husband and I had done this now 10 years ago from now. At the time, it was probably 2-3 years before I was at this point. And we were both 2 FBI agents, 2 kids, no family helping, no family or anywhere, like within states to help and just trying to like get through life, right? We were both like get to retirement well, at least that's what I was thinking. Just got to get through. And we would do, when we were both in town, an evening walk because we had a dog and we had to walk the dog. And so we would use that as our time to like just plan the next day, like the logistics of running a family in the situation we were in. And so that one night, I don't remember the specifics, but I'm pretty sure I was just like done with being exhausted and not knowing where we're going. And we just started talking about where are we going to be when our youngest leaves for college? How are we going to do this? And that was 11 years at that point. What is it that we're working for? What are we trying to accomplish in our lives?
Questions.
Yeah. And so we started talking together and dreaming like, oh man, we met in the army and got married in the army, and we met in Germany. We're like, oh, we want to live in Europe again. We want to be skiing. We want to be doing this and that. And it led to so many downstream decisions. It led to me doing grad school. It led to us taking transfers across the country. It led us to retire when we did, moving back, and health decisions, financial decisions, and relationships. And all this stuff came from us one night, just one night. We out of, I think, necessity, decided to talk about something that wasn't the next day.
Love it.
So that's the origin of Future Walk. I'll just pause there for any questions, and I'm happy to explain the different ways.
And it's so important to, again, I always say we are going so fast and the world is moving very fast. So that survival mode that you spoke of earlier, it's just, I always say, I want people to get from the day, not just through the day.
Yeah.
So it's, if you don't know where you're going or what your future goals are. So I love the Future Walk. I love that you're outside. I love that you're with your dog. I just get the whole visual of the whole thing sounds relaxing. And again, these aren't new concepts, so to speak, but it's getting people, I think what I'm trying to do with folks, and I love what you do on your website, it's lead well and live well.
Yeah.
And there's a saying that I heard, I went to a corporate athlete event many years ago, and the question was, will you survive your own success?
Oh,
and
great.
I love that question. So what I'm hearing you say is, by having this Future Walk with my husband, it affected our health decisions, our financial decisions, what we started talking about something that wasn't just tomorrow.
Yeah.
And so do you have specific questions? Any intentional questions we could share with the listeners?
Yes, absolutely. And I think of it in terms of what time frame do you want to work in, and then you scale the length of your walk based upon that time frame. So I consider it an antidote or an inoculation to reaction, which is like that daily in the moment disconnection, which is when we just are living a life. Sometimes we're the person, a spouse or a partner or a work colleague that's really important to our work, but we're still kind of living separate lives together. So it can be an antidote to that. Survival mode, which I've talked about, that's a midterm thing. That long-term survival mode leads to what I consider to be drift. That's like the multi-decades long, where you maybe get to where you thought you were going. You follow that corporate path, or that leader who said, do this grad school, not that grad school, do this assignment, not that assignment. You follow these things and you accomplish what maybe professionally you set out to. You look back and you're like, oh, you see some things in the wake, and then it's when regret happens and all that. Yeah. So however long you're thinking, like there's different lengths of future walking. It has to do with how your brain works. So real briefly, like a daily walk is really helpful to take advantage of your executive centers. Like that prefrontal cortex is really task oriented. So if you today are like, I want to figure out my top 3 priorities, or right now, mid-afternoon,
Right.
you're like, oh man, my to-do list has grown. There's no way I'm going to get it all done. I need to figure out what's most important. Don't try to do that sitting at your desk.
I love it. Go take a walk. That's great.
Through what is the most important thing left in the time you have left. And then you scale from there. Weekly you could walk. If you don't, like my husband and I do try to walk every night still. But if you don't do that, try to do a weekly walk. Just, hey, what's going on for you this week? Or if you've got a business partner, what's most important, or a good friend, just to stay connected. Because the social health is the most important thing we can focus on for our long-term overall health. And then like longer term, you think 3 months or a quarter, you can go walk for 30 or so minutes. Because what happens after about 15 to 20 minutes, all that executive stuff settles down and the dreaming part, the opening up happens. You get that default mode network starts to become more dominant. You start to see things differently. I mean, it's a really crazy shift. When I'm walking, I will sometimes time it just curiously. I'll be like, wow, 18 minutes, and all of a sudden, my brain just goes these different places. And then even longer, you get more. So longer can be longer term.
So I always say, you're frozen, but hopefully you'll catch up. Can you hear me still?
I got you.
Okay. I always tell people, if you do something at least 3 times a week, that's a habit. So it doesn't have to be, every single day.
Yeah.
The post office is 20. We don't get mail delivery. I live in the sticks. The post office is 20 minutes. 20 minutes.
What?
It's 10 minutes from my house. So when I find myself getting stressed or tight, it's like, Michele, get up, walk to the post office,
nice.
Walk back. It's 20 minutes total. I might run into someone at the post office that I want to chat with.
Yeah.
But what I love about it is, I love what you just said, that I think of it as a snow globe. Like when you shake a snow globe, and when I go for a walk, all the little pieces of snow eventually settle. And I love what you just said. It takes 10 to 15 minutes. Is that what you said?
Yeah, normally like that executive, you're just real task oriented during that time. And that's great. If that's really good for a short term, after that, you might is when you will start to get more creative.
Okay, that's fabulous. And that to me has always been the missing ingredient in our culture today, is creativity. We are kind of like a time is money culture, show up at your desk at 9 o'clock and be brilliant, with no time to prepare or be creative. And if I think of like the masters that are like building beautiful buildings or sculptures or poetry, you don't think of them having like this rigid schedule. What do you think? And you're coming from from the West Point, from the military.
Right.
So I'd love you to talk about the creativity and a rigid schedule versus not. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh gosh, that's so good. Right. And so all of this is kind of, I'm that story, and I created a different path, and I followed, and by no means unique. but I am not the norm, right? And so I followed a different path. Now, I had probably some really good seeds planted. And I'm thinking about it. My dad was a graphic designer, and he was very artistic. He was a photographer and a painter were his passions, and like amateur astronomy. And so we were always looking at the stars, and he was creating. My mom was an outdoor, it still is an outdoor freak, nature person. She became a master naturalist in her probably mid 50s or 60s. Like, we were always outside. We had a bike riding family. I grew up in Michigan, so we had this little boat. We were on the water, and like, there's just a lot of like nature as a part of my entire upbringing, as well as that creativity. And she was a preschool teacher, so she had that creative side as well. And so those were all these foundational things for me. So they're not difficult things for me to tap into. But I think another thing, probably, maybe we can connect this back to a little positive psychology, is those are strengths of mine. Like, when I do like a VIA, values in action, like a character strengths, absolutely. So these things come up for me, and the character strength side, they're effortless, they're essential to who I am, they're energizing for me. So tapping into those is very natural for me.
I love what you said, and I want to talk about that. So the VIA character strengths are the basis of, for people listening, it's the basis of positive psychology. There are 25 character strengths that are agreed upon. And I always forget the website. Do you know the website? People could take it for free.
Values in Action.
Values in Action. Is it .org? I believe it is.
I believe so. Yeah.
Values in Action.
I think it's viacharacter.org, I think is what it is. But if you type Values in Action, it'll come up.
Yeah. And if ever you could, people listening can take this, and it gives you your top 5 character strengths, which are like air to you. So while Sarah's saying these are her top 5 and it's easy for her to tap into them, anyone listening can get their top 5. And then the more you're using them, the happier you are. So I love that you're using that. In today's world, again, we're so rewarded for speed. And I love everything you're saying about being outdoors and, painting, and your mother was a school teacher. Are you incorporating these things, like helping your clients find a way, whatever the doorway is, for them to be more creative and slow down, instead of just kind of like, I feel like we're just always producing and consuming versus just relaxing and creating? What are your thoughts on that?
I'm big on the relaxing. I haven't really tapped into the creating. That's really interesting. I certainly, with others, certainly a space for it. I think our minds can go there, because there's one, it just comes to mind, there's one really key step on future walking that I overlooked. That is, when you get back, journal, like just like, get it all down. I'm always blown, like my mind is blown. I did a little experiment recently. I wrote down 3 questions I wanted to think about, and I'm like, okay. And I was, I'm always testing this. And today I did a community future walk with some people, and I'm like pulling from them what their experiences was and like how this works. And so anyhow, I was testing this, and I wrote down 3 questions I wanted to think about literally 22 minutes in, because I ran into someone while I was walking. So I chit chat a little bit. I timed myself 22 minutes, and my mind goes like this. Then I get like 15, 17 minutes of mind. And then I was like, it all kind of came back together. I'm like, okay, I'm done. I came back. I wrote it all out. I wrote a page and a half of like scribbles, 3 little questions. But that journaling part is so important. When you come back, don't do it while you're walking. Don't even put your phone on Do Not Disturb if you have to take it. Don't take it if you can. But do it when you get back, because I think that's the creative piece. It starts to make, it doesn't have to be like painting a picture, but you start to create because you think of things in different ways. You see different connections you wouldn't when you're just staring at a wall or looking at your computer.
Exactly. Yes. It makes me so excited. And I'm a huge journaler. Yeah. I mean, literally, I got divorced in my 40s, and I started numbering my journals. I'm at number 69 right now.
Wow.
But I love what you're saying. And I love what you're saying about asking yourself specific questions. I have a saying, never ask yourself a question you don't want the answer to. Like, why am I so stupid? Why can't I figure it out? Versus, how can I figure it out? What's the next step for me? So you ask these questions, you go on a walk, And then when you come back, the answers kind of, I always say, like, I feel like what you're saying is they flow through you versus you didn't like think of them and make them happen.
Yeah.
They creatively come through you, which is very different.
Yeah. Oh, it's so accurate. I mean, and a simple thing one of your listeners can do is just like, hey, go out for a walk, 30, 35 minutes. Just give yourself that time frame. Plan it so it happens. Plant a seed with a question. And that question could be something like, what am I avoiding doing? Or what am I missing about whatever? See, you have a situation you can't figure out. What am I missing about this? Or how do I want things to be? Give yourself a date, 3 months from whatever today is. How do I want things to be? Or what are my top 3 personal priorities or professional priorities? Just like get real specific and walk with that idea. Your brain's going to circle it for a little while, and maybe some of it's deeper ones. You might take a couple of walks to figure some things out that really matter. But most of the time, like you kind of get into that flow state you were talking about as you are moving. I used to, as a working teaching at the National Academy, I began to realize like when I had a big thing I needed to work on and work, like designing a course, I would plan a bike ride. Now, simple, same thing, but I had to go a little longer. So I'd plan a bike ride. I was living in Virginia, plan a bike ride for hour and a half or something. I would set my intention for that thoughts that would happen during that bike ride, and I would ride. I planned courses. I planned this. That's the creativity piece, because my mind, it was the conditions for the work. And that's what walking does. It creates those conditions for your work.
That's so beautiful, because you're teaching people really how to tap into their own brilliance and their own creativity versus kind of, trying to force it. So I love, like, ask the question, plan for the bike ride. Now, again, Sarah, I look at you, or I look at your background, and I think, oh my gosh, West Point, military, and then FBI. And I think all this stuff we're talking about sounds wonderful. How would these people even take this in? Do they say, oh my God, this is crazy? Or how is it received if you went to those audiences?
I think let me think. There could be some resistance because there are so many expectations. I was just, I'll say this. I was with a similar environment, but with a construction company recently. And I had them do this. I just had them it was like a 10-minute walk around the block. These are people who have the same rigid expectations, the same performance standards, the same requirements, the same level of demands and incessant and everything. And I was blown away by what they came back with after just a few minutes. So there might be resistance at the beginning. Certainly. Others are like, yes, let me get outside and do this. Yes, I'm so grateful someone's telling me I need. And it's not a break. And that's the other thing. You're not. It's an intentional process where you're thinking. It's like a work action. You're not trying to forget work. I'm all about mindfulness and meditation and all that. Those aren't breaks either. But like, it's not. It's a really deliberate way to think more with, again, more clarity and more creativity.
You're hitting on something again so important, because it's a what do they call it? A myth. I think it's a myth that if you're taking a walk or you're taking a nap or you're meditating, that you're not like, we have this thing where we always have to be going and doing. And those little things that you're talking, I mean, they're not little. I always say there's small actions that yield big results.
Right.
They're so important in our mental health and in the state. And if I look at, the state of our world right now, we live too much in our heads and not enough in our bodies. We're always thinking and worrying and going, and, being in our bodies, like you said, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, your creativity, your heart rate slows down, you start to get into the flow state, the ideas start to come. So give me an example of one of your favorite clients that you work with, so people know the type of work you're looking for. And then I want to hear where people can find you and all that fun stuff.
Yeah. I love working with, and it's probably just because it's so familiar or similar, people who are winding down from the career into something else. Like, what's next? Maybe they're already in that what's next, and they're trying to figure out how to, like, what's next. Maybe their what's next is just an extension of what was. But helping people, I love Arthur Brooks's work. And, like going from
I don't know that work.
Oh my gosh. I was just, can I grab a book? I'll show you.
Yeah, please.
I was just, Arthur Brooks. Oh, he's my favorite. I was just working with a client today. I sent him this book.
Okay, I'll have to look it up.
Success, happiness, and deep purpose in the second half of life. You could fill in your time frame, and he works with, but like, it doesn't have to necessarily be the second half of life. But if the path others recommend or the logical pathway is more a continuation of the same, I'll say a lot of people retire from the FBI and go into security roles. Logical extension. That's what everyone in the corporate world wanted me to kind of do. And that was like not my pull. My pull was something totally different. And so, like, what is that for people? I love working with people in that space. Maybe it is the first time they've been asked or given permission to take a breath and really think about things or to focus on themselves. I like helping people figure that out, whether they're pre-transition, during, post. We'll work with people at all ranges. So
thank you.
Yeah.
And where can people find you? Tell us.
For sure. Yes, my company is called Leading Well Strategies. So you can find me on that. I'm on LinkedIn as Sarah G. Draper. My podcast called Future Walk, so you can learn more about this idea of future walking. Those are the best ways to reach me.
Okay. Again, Sarah, this has been so fun. I still feel like we could do a whole other podcast just on journaling, just on the future walking, just on grounding. People take for granted these small things. So you, with your background, being, working in so many high stake moments and knowing what it's like under pressure and then knowing when to pivot in your career is just a beautiful example. Just because something looks good on paper or up from the outside doesn't mean it's meeting your needs. So I love the courage you had to say, you know what, let's take a walk with my husband. Let's talk about, why are we doing what we're doing? And when we know the why, then we can start to work backwards. So that was just a beautiful message. Any final words of wisdom for the listeners today?
No, I appreciate your light. I know you're the light lady, but like you're this personified. Like you are just this like energy and a representation of what is possible, and it's real. I mean, I feel it. I know your listeners feel it, and I just appreciate you and that message you share, not just through your words, but truly through your heart with the world.
Thank you. I see you. I know you'll be back because this is a conversation that even this, I'm going to say one last thing. This season, I'm saying that we are walking the edge between business and spirituality or business and wellness because we can't just do one anymore. And I love that how you've blended the two so beautifully. And it shows in your life as well in your work. So thank you so much, Sarah, for being here. Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. This is Michele Phillips with this episode of Write Your Outcome. The pen is in your hands. Write a good outcome. If you liked what you heard and you want to go deeper and you are part of this new earth and this new awakening that is happening on the planet, please go right now to wherever you are listening to this podcast and subscribe. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and Amazon Music. Please rate and review to give it a bigger boost, and that will bring more people to the podcast. And stay tuned for more engaging conversations on Write Your Outcome, where this season we are walking the edge between business and spirituality.